you've been white-knuckling your way through adulting with ADHD, burnout, or just too many browser tabs open in your brain, I've got you. Let's hop on a free discovery call where we'll talk ADHD, purpose, and how to stop feeling like a walking to-do list. No weird sales pitches, just real talk. Fierce kindness. Book it now at youradhdguy.com. That's youradhdguy.com. Your future self will high five you for it. Yeah. Welcome to Don't Mind Me, I Just Have ADHD, the podcast where fierce kindness meets the unfiltered truth. A one-stop shop about all things ADHD, where we smash the stigma and mystery around ADHD, depression, and the masks we wear at work and in life. I'm Ron, your ADHD guy, your guide, and your reminder that being different isn't a flaw. It's a biological advantage, a signal that you were never meant to blend in. You were built to make a difference. Here, we face the struggles that no one seems to get with heart. We unpack the chaos. We build strength through our sensitivity. We turn pain into power. Because kindness isn't weak. It's a revolution. And every time you show up for yourself, that's you taking your life back. So let's make it cool to be different. Let's make it brave. Let's make it yours.
Hey friends, welcome back to Don't Mind Me, I Just Have ADHD. This is part 4 of our series on ADHD and trauma. If you missed last week's episode, I really encourage you to pause here and go back. In that one, we broke down the shame cycle, how ADHD traits like emotional dysregulation, time blindness, and disorganization often gets mislabeled as laziness, irresponsibility, or being too sensitive. We talked about how those patterns aren't flaws, they're actually creative adaptations, and how vulnerability is the antidote to shame. So if you haven't heard that yet, definitely pause here, check it out. It sets the stage for where we're going today. Because here's the thing, the story doesn't end with us. Shame didn't start with us. You heard that right. Many of our parents were carrying their own shame and trauma, and without even realizing it, they passed it down. And then there's the bigger story, how ADHD got tangled up in the pharmaceutical industry, shaping not only how we're treated, but how we see ourselves. We're taking it there today. Inherited wounds, generational trauma. Let's start with our families. I want to zoom in on one voice that's been central to this whole conversation. Dr. Gabor Maté. One of the clearest voices on trauma is living proof of its impact. Born in Budapest during the Holocaust, his grandparents were murdered in Auschwitz. And as an infant, he was separated from his mother for weeks so she could save his life. The absence etched itself into his nervous system, leaving him with a lifelong drive to prove his worth. Even as a successful doctor, he admits he became a workaholic, chasing compulsion, whether through buying stacks of CDs or burying himself in endless work. He calls all addiction a search for something missing. an attempt to fill the absence of warmth, touch, or safety that should have been there in childhood. In his book, The Myth of Normal, Maté argues that our culture itself is toxic. Not toxic as in bad vibes, but toxic in the scientific sense, like a petri dish where organisms fail to thrive. Physiology is directly affected by relationships, he writes. Stress, inequality, and disconnection aren't just emotional burdens, they shape our bodies. In fact, Maté points out, loneliness carries the same risk as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Whoa. And the roots of that loneliness often start in childhood. Children don't get traumatized because they were hurt. They get traumatized because they were alone with that hurt. That's where generational trauma begins, not in our DNA, but in the silence, in the lack of touch, in parents who were never held themselves. So they don't even know how to hold us. One of Mate's most striking examples comes not from humans, but from rats. Yeah, I said that right. Rats. A mother rat licks her infants as soon as they are born, he says. And the way she licks them impacts their baby rat brain, how their baby rat brains develop. Affection literally wires resilience into the nervous system. Without it, stress floods the body, shapes the brain for vigilance instead of safety. And it's not just theory. In his 2023 interview with Prince Harry, Maté shows how even royalty can carry this wound. When Diana died, King Charles reportedly told his son, "There's been a terrible accident. Your mother didn't make it." Then briefly touched Harry's knee and left the room. No hug, no embrace, just absence. And years earlier, when Charles himself was a boy, his mother returned from a month-long royal tour and greeted him when he was 5, not with arms open, but with just a handshake. To me, that's even worse than being simply ignored. That's generational trauma. The echo of unmet needs reverberating through generations. And if even kings and princes, surrounded by privilege, carry those wounds, how much more do we? Trauma isn't always bruises or shouting. Sometimes it's the coldness at the dinner table. The real men don't cry lessons. The unwritten rule that needing comfort makes you weak. Our parents, like us, were once children too, believe it or not. Children told to suppress, to endure, to mask. And when their wounds were left unhealed, they unintentionally passed them down. Not because they didn't love us, but because they didn't know how. And with this striking conversation that I've had with my own mother, I hope that it sheds light on some things that we've taken for granted. I'm here with my mom. I'm a mama's boy, and I was always planning on doing an interview with her, and it actually really lines up to the subject that we're going to talk about. Thank you for coming on the show, Mom. Um,
Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Tell us what do you do? Um, what brings you to, what expertise are you bringing to the show?
Um, well, just as a parent that loves their child, and I, work as a physical therapist in my career. So those are the main things that are make me the your expert on your show.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you've got a lot of experience with being the one who created the host of this show, so it's very interesting dynamic.
Yes,
Um,
agreed.
so so what is your experience with, raising me with ADHD or recently? Or
Um,
more about the focus on raising me.
well, I mean, I think um, for a while it was more um I noticed you had more trouble trying to make friends and getting teased by others. And so you struggled and didn't have a good time, weren't doing well with trying to um kind of manage your emotions. You would have fits and get angry at times and not know how to calm yourself. So there were times where I would just say you should go to your room and just spend some time downtime. And you like to read, so I think that helped you to get back to feeling like you were able to join everyone else. Um, but
Yeah, it's
there were
interesting.
times when just lost control. It might be in the store, um, or with family gatherings. I wouldn't go so far as to say that you were trying to get attention. Um, I think it was just hard to understand really what was going on. So, I thought you maybe would, well, actually, it was one of your teachers in fifth grade had suggested that we have you go see a counselor and
Hmm.
see if there was anything that could reveal and help you um, integrate better in school, because she basically said you were kind of not working well in groups and that you had trouble. You were better as on your own. You were tending to be a loner.
Hmm.
So that kind of was some things, um, seeing that happening, um, kind of made me feel like I'm not sure how to parent very well. It made me humbled for sure, as trying to be the best parent you can be, when you're really not sure if you're doing things that are helpful, you know, wanting to know what those things are and not really having the answers.
Yeah, it must have been a real struggle. Do you know that things that worked growing up or um
Well, I mean, I know you told the story, um, I don't, an episode back or so about, um, being called out for standing on the desk and not telling me until you were probably, I think, in fourth grade when you finally told me that. And it was
hmm.
kind of beyond my ability to do anything. So I think, um, with my own set of problems, I think, trying to bring, go to see someone in the school system to find help. I really didn't feel like I had that kind of you know, knowledge of that would be a good idea to do, until much later when I was like as a PT, seeing that there are things out there that can help people,
Mm.
and then I've, learned a lot after the fact, um, and it was like, wow, I wish I could have known these things, um, that could have helped. So I feel like some part of me was felt kind of helpless and,
Yeah.
doing what was best. I just tried, um, you know, being, playing with you and your sister, and just being, you know, supportive in the best way I know. And, making sure you understood there are rules and that you need to, be conscientious of following rules, but I know those things are challenging for kids, to be
Oh,
able
and
to
you,
grow
you
up with the rules,
you've definitely done a good job, and you did the best that you can, and the fact that you cared goes, to show. You can really see that. So
Mhm.
when you think back to your own childhood, what were the rules around emotions in your family?
Okay, well, I can say that, um, if you had an outburst or some uh thing that you were upset or angry or frustrated, it just was like, um, that's not allowed. And there was no real, like, what's going on, how you doing, are you having a problem that we need to talk about? Um, but it was more like, okay, if you're going to behave like that, go to your room. So I just found that being away from people helped me to calm myself. So because I was able to, no longer, be, where I have to keep, I could calm my emotions down more.
Hmm.
So I think, I know my parents, that was how they were brought up, is like, this kind of behavior is not allowed. We just don't do this. If you're going to act out, that's something you're going to have to, um, you know, cope with, or figure out a way to cope with what you're feeling. And, there wasn't any sense of like, oh, I think you may need some counseling, or we need to talk about what's going on. Can you tell me what's happening? You know.
So did that feel like strange for you growing up? Was that something that you just accepted, or did you feel like that that you wanted more?
Well, I don't know. I guess for some part of me, it was like, oh, this is how it works in the world. You need to behave this way, or, you know, it's not okay. So you need to just stop those behaviors and, see, just, um just handle it yourself, you know.
Hmm.
So I think it was more that. And, it wasn't like I was thinking there's some way I need to talk to someone, and I just thought that there wasn't anything other than that. There wasn't anybody out there that you could really go to, you know, because I didn't know anything. I just knew that this was the way it works in the world. So,
So how did you feel when like those big emotions came and you couldn't express them? Was there
uh,
anything that you felt like you couldn't? There was a feeling you couldn't express?
well, I think I just learned really quickly to just stuff it down really deep.
Hmm.
you know, because of, going through other traumas that had nothing to do with my parents, that I learned as a child that some things you just bury, and you just, that's, but I think part of it was made me feel like I was a bad person and I couldn't really talk to people about how I felt, and just had to feel like a bad person, like something was wrong with me, you
That's
know.
awful.
So I was like, okay, well, I just eventually, I ended up having a breakdown and being hospitalized because I buried it so much that it finally couldn't stay there, which was really good because I needed to be healed, you know,
Yeah.
even though it
When was that?
was really difficult. Um, it was you were I think, I don't know, I believe it was like 19 or 20 or something.
Yeah,
And
I do remember that. And, it was, nobody knew why it happened. And, it's great that you were able to say, talk about that in such an uplifting way, and recognize that those were those emotions being stuffed down for
yes, I mean,
decades.
to your listeners out there, it's like there are things that you could bury, but it's better if you talk about them, as Ronnie in his podcast tends to try to put out there, that it's good to talk about what's going on and with someone you feel safe talking to.
Yeah, definitely. So was there a lot of physical affection in your family growing up?
Yeah, there was some, but some, it wasn't, I guess my mom, she wasn't as affectionate as my dad. Um, and I know she loved us very much. I didn't have any problem understanding that they loved me, you know. Um, the but physical affection was, I think, for my mother was difficult. Um, and she had her own issues with her self-esteem, you know, and feeling like worthy in a lot of ways. I'm sure a lot of people feel like sometimes I'm just not worthy, of receiving anything good, so, and you might tell yourself that so many times you start believing it.
Mm.
So, um, my dad, he was, definitely more um, wanting to um, be more, like a physical hugs and, um, you know, wrestling and goofing off, you know, uh,
Mm.
so I did get some physical kind of emotional support through my dad, even though he was a tough guy. Um,
Yeah.
he was a Marine. We had
Yeah.
to toe the line or else, you know, and it was like if we did something wrong as kids, and my mom when my mom was home and he was at work, because she didn't work, she stayed at home, so which is kind of rare these days. She would say, just wait till your dad gets home, and we would be like begging, no, 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 we'll be good, so and she would always say things like, you guys would make the angels curse, or the saints curse, because
Wow.
we're probably a rough bunch to deal with because there were five of us, and that's a lot for one person to handle every day, so
Yeah. So where do you think that your mom's or grandma's um low self-esteem came from? Like,
well, I know
you ever talk about it?
there were things that happened to her as a teenager, and some of it is like some things you couldn't really bring up. I wouldn't want to talk about, but she went through a divorce. I mean, her parents did.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a big factor in that. And her dad, she went to live with him part of her teenage life, and he never gave her any love. He
Mm.
never said he loved her. He never held her.
Wow.
Uh, so I think that was why she probably
Yeah.
felt not worthy, and had a low self-esteem, you
Yeah, you
know.
can see that, it's like a pattern of
Yeah,
one parent to the other. So,
yeah.
but you growing up, and I remember you'd always try to hug me and cuddle, and I'd always try to get away, because I'm a
Oh, right.
guy. Where do you think that came? Did that it came from your dad's side, right?
Well, I mean, when I was very young, I was very, you know, like being near my dad and hugging and, sitting on his lap and just being like daddy's girl, you know. And so I think, you know, early on, I craved, uh, you know, a, connection,
Hmm.
with people that I admired or cared about me too. So I think it was just, mainly, um, I had that very young. So I'm fortunate for that because, a lot of people might get that more from their mom, but for me, I got it more from my dad, you know. So he was more affectionate, and he understood, I guess he was okay with me being so affectionate, so it didn't bother him. So
Yeah, that's interesting. And
he
I
didn't
believe that
get
there's
away, you little brat, or anything like that.
yeah, I believe there's a connection between like especially fathers giving that physical affection
Mhm.
because it means so much more because it's I guess more of a rarity or the way that they do it. It's interesting.
Well, I mean, your grandfather was a unique guy, as you know, but
Yeah.
your listeners don't. Um, he was, he was a homeless child for part of his childhood, and went from being in like friends watching him, looking after him, his aunt being in an orphanage, living on the streets, in Philadelphia where it's kind of rough. um,
Yeah.
so I think early on he thought of he wanted to be a fan a fan in a family where he had some kind of um, security and safety, feeling like he was belonged. Um, and I think for him it was um, important for him to pass on being affectionate because I think he understood how much he needed it, and he wanted to be the best dad he could, even though he never had a dad, so he didn't really know how to be a
Mm.
dad. So, so he, worked on that. He cared about being a good dad and making sure his kids grew up well and had good things for them.
Yeah, he definitely showed that love to all his children and grandchildren. And, I've always like I carry this around and wear this, and it's his. For those that don't know, it's actually his thumbprint. And I try to be like him, the best parts of him. Um, he's made a real big impact in my life, and I believe that it's that affection. Like he's really tried. He definitely had his, shortcomings. We all do. But, he really didn't allow that to get in his way of being the best he could be and leaving a legacy.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that I think, part of the thing growing up, I wanted you to know who your grandparents were, even though we didn't live in the same town. So I, during the summers, wanted you to spend time down there to see, these are the people where I come from, you know, um, and have some kind of feeling of like we are a family. We need to be, a family needs to
Yeah.
time together, or they don't know who they are, where they come from. And I thought that was valuable. So that was one of the things that I tried to do, um, since I couldn't move near them and you couldn't grow up around them. That was the best thing I think I could do.
Yeah. And it was good. I remember those times fondly. And but to kind of rewind back, like, so when I was in, before I was born, was there a lot of stress that you went through during that time, if you can
Well, I mean,
remember?
before you were born, there was, I had been, um, having
Like when you were pregnant with me.
right when I was pregnant, you I had to stop working, if like about 2 3 weeks before you were born, because I was getting my blood pressure was um too high, um
Hmm.
and it was called preeclampsia. So that could have caused a lot of injury if I to you. So I had to stay in bed the whole time between the time that they told me to stop doing anything until the time you were born. Um, so I, had to be mindful of, I couldn't just get up just to go to the bathroom or have food, you know. So, so it was kind of a stressful time, not sure what's going to happen because,
Yeah.
you know, I wasn't sure because I was quite kind of young when I had you, so I really didn't understand like all the medical stuff and what all that meant. But I just wanted to make sure I did everything I could to have you
Yeah.
be as healthy as you could.
It
And
must
then
have been scary.
during your birth, my your heart rate went too low.
Hmm.
So, and I was in an area where it was remote. It wasn't a normal hospital. It was on a base hospital in the middle of the desert.
It's like
And
an Alfred Hitchcock movie.
something like that. Yeah. And it was like all they had was a maternity ward in the hospital with 13 beds. And it seemed like everybody decided to have their baby at the same time. So there was basically you were waiting for your um to have your baby. And for me, my water broke, but my labor didn't start. So that
Hmm.
was a danger again, another danger. So I had to,
Danger, danger, danger.
yeah. So they had to induce my labor. So so they kind of timed it so it was in between um other women having their babies. So
Wow. It's a
and,
very stressful time.
and then also they couldn't read your blood pressure, I mean your heart rate. So I had to lay on my side and they had to put an internal monitor on to read it properly. And you were under distress, basically. That's what that meant. when the heart rate is low on a baby, the baby is in distress. And
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of mothers out there may have been through stuff that for their children, during childbirth or before, because having babies is not actually, it can be unsafe, and there can
Yeah.
be things that are dangers. you know it's not an easy thing to go through. But I ended up, they were able to deliver you, and but you're, somehow your head had gotten compressed coming out of the birth canal, so it, but it reshaped. It wasn't, so I don't know, there were things that happened. They said the cord was wrapped around your neck during that time, so I guess when you were delivered,
Wow.
they kind of took the cord away from your neck, to so it wouldn't strangle you, basically. So
Hmm.
you were, being under duress or during that time. It
Yeah.
was, but you were healthy, when I held you in my arms for the first time. So you were breathing,
So how were you feeling during all this? Were you really stressed out?
I don't know. I think I was just like trying to do what I was supposed to do, and
I mean, you
I
didn't see me like
had
that?
faith. I had faith that God was going to find a way for us to make it through this.
Hmm.
That God was there, and I would be okay and you would be okay. Just believed that, you know, maybe I was naive, you know,
Yeah, well, I mean, it happened. So, I mean, it's not. It's
but somehow I felt like it was going to be okay no matter all this going on, and that it wouldn't help me to be stressed out over it and freak out,
Yeah,
so.
that probably would have caused even more damage, and I may have not survived. So it was good that you were able to manage your stress with self-regulation and faith. And so how did you find out about like this this thing that needed to stay bedridden till I was born? How
Well,
did you find out about that?
I'm sure you're not aware, but in general, most women out there probably know, or men that have had children with, they understand that there are checkups that you have to do, and they'll check your blood pressure and go through all the
Hmm.
checks that need to be done to see that everything's normal happening. They might do where they do an ultrasound to see if everything's positioned right, and that the development looks normal. So they check you throughout the pregnancy that something, everything's okay. But, that was when they noticed that things weren't as good. I think I was getting my legs were swelling from fluid, and from working in my job. I was a cashier, so I was standing all the time, you know,
Hmm.
and it was a pretty good pace of work, and it was, you had your breaks and everything, but I think it was just too much on my body at that point to be
Yeah.
working. And it just basically it's maybe it just I overdid it, you know,
Yeah.
being on my feet, but I didn't know, because I'm a new mother, and didn't realize there was something going that was changing, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so you're going to your prenatal checks are like vital to the health of your unborn children.
So yeah, do you remember moments where you felt pressure from like teachers or society about how I should behave?
Um, well, I think it was mainly when it when you were in fifth grade and your teacher, was noticing some of your behaviors, and thinking that you needed to go through some counseling or you might need to be put on medications. And yeah, so I think, there was that pressure of like, should I should I do this? Is that going to be a problem if I don't put my child on this medication, and then later they're going to wish, like, why didn't you do this, mom?
Today, we looked at how generational trauma isn't something abstract. It's something carried in silences, in handshakes instead of hugs, and parents doing the best they could with what they were taught. It echoes through families, not because of lack of love, but because of lack of tools, lack of support. And that's where we'll pause for now, because this story doesn't end here. Shame doesn't just flow down family lines. It gets magnified by the culture we live in and the industries that profit from our pain. Here's my challenge to you before the next episode. Download my self-discovery journal. The link will be in the show notes. Use it to notice one belief you think was handed down in your family, like real men don't cry, or you're only valuable if you achieve. Write it down, then ask yourself, do I want to keep this? Try sharing one small moment of honesty with someone safe. Even a text like, hey, I'm realizing I've been carrying shame that isn't mine. Connection is how we break cycles. And if you want support as you do this work, you can always book a free strategy coaching call with me at youradhdguy.com. And don't forget, Saturday nights, we gather live on TikTok with the Kindness Circle at ron.solo1. Follow me, share it, tell it to your friends, to somebody that you know needs it. Bring your stories of kindness, or just bring yourself. We're in this together. You don't want to miss it. But next week, we're stepping into a much bigger conversation. One that might make you a little angry. Because it's not just our parents who handed down shame. It's an entire industry. And the invisible bars it built can feel worse than a life sentence. You don't want to miss it. As always, share, and may the source be with you.